Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Okay, I will call this meeting to order, December the 8th, Legislative Committee meeting at 2 o'clock. So we've all had a chance to take a look at the agenda. I'd be taking a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Barry so moves. Is there any additions or deletions to this agenda? Seeing nothing, all those in favor? Okay, good, thank you. Next up is the minutes of our last legislative meeting. Take a motion to approve those minutes. Councillor Lemko, thank you very much. Is there any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carry, thank you. Right now we have a delegation from Valid, the new executive director. So if we could bring her in. Well, I see they have a new desk over at Valid now. That's nice. Oh, look, here we go. Hello?
Hi.
Hello, Lana. My name is Tim McPhee and I'm the mayor of Vegreville.
Hello, Mayor McPhee. How are you?
Very good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate you guys giving me a chance.
Well, I think we should go around the room and introduce everybody here who is at this meeting so you'll get to know who they are.
You betcha.
So go ahead, Councilor Rudick, if you would start.
Hi again, Lana. Happy to
Hi,
see you in
Janine.
the setting.
Councilor Rajek.
Hi, Lana. How are you? We spoke on the phone a few weeks ago when you were first starting in the position.
Yes,
Welcome
I
to-
remember you provided me that list of rental spaces, I believe.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Thanks.
Councilor Lemko.
Good afternoon, Lana. A pleasure to have you at our meeting.
Thanks for having me.
And Councilor Barry.
Yes, good afternoon, Councillor Barry. David's first name.
Hello.
Lana, we have one more councilor, but she is not quite at her residence yet, so she'll be checking in there any minute.
Okay.
So can you tell us what made you take on this this job here in Vegreville?
Yeah, I had to look up where Vegreville was in my search for where I was going to land, for sure. The opportunity just looked really enticing to me, Mayor McPhee. I do have a background in running nonprofits. I've been an executive director before. I really thrive in that environment for myself. And the opportunity was really compelling. I'm from a small town, so I don't mind the transition. And I was ready to make a move, actually. I was already packing up my house, even though I had no idea where I was going to go or where I was going to land. It was just kind of one of those life things that was happening. And then this came along and it just kind of unfolded. And yeah, it just kind of feels like it's the right place to be for me. So I'm pretty excited about it.
We're very happy to have you here. You have some big shoes to fill.
I do.
But, the association is well respected in this community, and it's something that as a council we're looking forward to always continue to work with Valid. So
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to hear that because I want to continue on with that relationship and make sure that it's strong and that it continues to build and grow and develop really good, strong partnerships. I inherited a wonderful organization. I gotta say, like the people, the staff, the structure, it's in good fiscal shape, right? Financially, yeah, my predecessor did a good job in that respect. So I'm thrilled to inherit the big shoes.
And can you fill us in? Do you have a full board of directors right now, or where you at with that?
We have 8 board members right now. I believe that's a full contingency, but I'm not quite sure. I'm going to check with our board chair and see what what they normally run with. I know that I understand there's been a little bit of a conversation about representation from the town on our board. I think that's a fabulous idea. I know that Tanine is already one of our board chair members, Councillor Riddick, and I don't know if she would even be interested in taking on that role as representation of the town, or if that's what you guys were thinking, but we are definitely open to having that relationship.
No, I wasn't really going that way. I was just seeing that you had a full board and you've met everybody and you've been at a few meetings already.
2.
Okay.
I've had 2 whole board meetings. I think the first one was a week after I started, so I was pretty green at that one. Learned a little bit in the month following, but yeah, it won't have another one till January now because there's no Christmas party this year.
Yeah, sad. So I'll introduce you to the last counselor. She's just checking in. This is Councillor Warwa. Mrs. Councillor Warwa, this is Tina.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Lana.
Nice to meet you too.
So maybe you can give us a little bit about what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve. Where do you want to take this organization?
You bet. So far, what I've seen is that the organization is very strong. It's got good resources. It's got assets that it's maybe not utilizing the way it could be utilized. We've got a bunch of empty lots, for example, that I know could potentially be developed into something great for the community, for the region. That's going to take a little bit of planning and foresight, but I think that they can't sit there empty forever, and they were acquired for a reason, is what I'm thinking. So I've had some conversations about what maybe potentially could be done with those lots, but it takes a big partnership and collaboration to develop something like that, right? So it'll be long-term, kind of looking at doing I've gotten permission from the board to build a needs assessment strategy to bring the who, what, where, why, when together of a formal needs assessment, maybe to look at what we could do with those 5 lots. And sometimes the decision is to do nothing in the end, right? Like there's no practical use for developing them right now, but I feel like my due diligence is to explore that. So I'm going to be looking at putting together something like that to continue to present to the board and the town and our funders to see if there's anything that we can do with that lot. In the meantime, I have suggested that maybe we could turn it into a community garden. I don't know what community garden spaces are available in Vegreville. It's just a thought because it's just sitting there empty right now. So that'll take a long-term plan to figure out what's going to happen with that one lot right across from us. That's three lots. I believe it's zoned commercial. And I did come across the plans for the original condo development that was to go there before Ballard purchased it. The purchase came with the building plans from that condo. Not that we're building a condo, but I could see that there was a big vision for that lot originally, right? And it's zoned commercial now, I understand. So that's one of the things I'm going to take on, see what we can do with the properties that we have. I'd also like to really focus on building some of our social enterprise. The pot of gold tying into the retail gap analysis that was done by the town, seeing how we can grow and expand that valuable resource because it provides unrestricted fund income for the pot of gold and gives us more opportunity to do more stuff if we can really, it's already such a fabulous organization. So looking at seeing what can be done there to grow its opportunities as well too. Yeah, so, and also the building here, I know that there's been some challenges with running programs here because with COVID, there was an identification of lack of bathroom facilities, hand washing facilities, sinks, too many people touching the same things at one time. So we're looking at doing a renovation project, hopefully next summer, that will just add bathrooms and a small kitchenette area for the day program. Just to kind of upgrade it and make it a more community usable facility, right? I'd like to see it maybe used if there's a need in the community to have it available to other organizations, like what we do with the Rotary Club coming here and having their meetings in our boardroom, and giving the space over to the community for all sorts of things, whatever's, I don't know the town enough to know yet, but I'm going to find out. So.
Well, I see you got some good news from the province United Way regarding your project, so.
Yeah, that was nice. That was, I think I did that grant application just when I started. It was like the first thing I did. And so it was nice that they were supportive. And we're very pleased that we can still create a program over the winter that will support our individuals while they're unable to access our admin building. And yeah, that's coming along nicely. We have the funds in place, we have the location in place, and yeah, it's going to be good. It will cover a lot of the needs that our individuals are experiencing with isolation and just not having a lot that they can do, even that they normally were able to do. They're just not able to do it. So we're going to do what we can in the meantime. COVID's going to be around for a little while longer. So yeah, it was very helpful that United Way came through for us on that.
Well, we all have challenges, and you with your clients and the uniqueness what they have bring to the table for you every day. I'm sure you'll find a way to fill their days and bring some smiles to them. So, like I said, Valid's always been a very important part of the social network fabric of this community. We all know a lot of your clients, and we interact with them every day, and we enjoy it. And
that's nice.
Looking forward to working with you. What else can you tell us about your long-term goals? Have you moved to town?
I have moved here. Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I plan on sticking around for a while and getting to know Vegreville. It's hard right now because I'm a bubble of one. So, you know, I can't get out and socialize and go to the local Legion and meet some people. And I'm pretty active with stuff I like to do. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but just like everybody has that same challenge right now, right? Trying to find things to do. But I play guitar and I line dance, and I've made some room in my living room so I can continue to practice so I don't forget, because I don't have my big group that reminds me of all the I know a lot of line dance songs. So I'm trying to do what I can to keep myself amused in my little bubble of one. So, but I look forward to getting to know Vegreville. I'm thrilled to be here. It's a cute little community. I've met some nice people, and yeah.
Well, I know that as council, we've talked about some team building, so maybe we could take a couple of line dancing classes as a group, and that'll be some more team building for us moving forward.
I am your go-to teacher. I used to teach the newbies all the time in my last group. I got nominated to teach all the beginners, and then I led some of the advanced stuff too. So I will take that on, Mayor McPhee, you bet.
I do believe we already have 5 line dancers in our group, but
oh, perfect. That's even better. They can teach
Councilor Barry and myself will need the lessons. So
okay, perfect. I'm in for that. You bet.
Anybody else have any questions they would like to bring up or any comments? Councilor Riddick, you go right ahead.
I was just going to say, just from the brief times that we've met at our board meetings, Lana's got a lot of things on the go and has really formalized a lot of the processes that perhaps everybody was familiar with in the past. So it's great to be able to see that there's some forward movement for programming for the clients, for example, as we move forward, because it looks like COVID will mean that there's a lot of restrictions for gathering for quite a while. And maybe the other thing I was just going to mention too is that there are a few things like the ability to be able to provide the social infrastructure that you had talked about, making sure that your clients can have the day programming is probably the best way that you could access that grant funding. And that funding that United Way applied for is through the federal government, but there have been different groups in the past that have applied for other grants. And I know that you've got a couple others on the go, like the CFAP grant or some of the other ones. Are there other ones that you feel confident that you can have other donors to participate and add to the matching portion of the grant?
The matching portion of the grant, I believe in talking to them, will be covered from the revenue generated from our own social enterprise, right? Because the pot of gold funds, for example, are revenue that are unrestricted by funders. And so the government in the operating grant, for example, looks at that to be matching funds as well too. It doesn't necessarily have to come from other grantors or other funders. So I think we've got the matching part covered as far as that goes. And same thing for the community facility enhancement grant. I think we'll be okay there, although that's a bigger ask because we're asking for the renovations on the building with that one, right? Whereas the operating grant is just for operational expenses. So I'm still working my way through that grant, even though it's due January 15th. It's kind of a big shoes to fill in getting that to happen. But I'm confident that I'll get the grant application done and in on time. No guarantees on whether it will be approved. Although I'm going to be honest, I'm batting 100% on any grant I've ever applied for, I've gotten. So I'm not going to hang my head in shame if I ever get declined on a grant application, because I do my best on them. But no guarantees. I do my best. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to pull it off with the help of the team and other potential. It's hard to go out and ask for funds from other organizations or, do fundraising. Everybody's struggling so much right now, right? So I'm just trying to do what we can with the resources that we have without tapping the shoulders of everybody who's also trying to figure out how to make ends meet. So does that answer your question?
It does. And I guess maybe the other part is wondering if there is anything that you would expect or hope to have assistance from the town proper, from our administration team or from council to help in your movement forward in this project.
Thanks for that question. I would love to know that the town is on board with anything that Ballot does, for sure, that we have support and the approval and the buy-in from the mayor and council and the other administrative staff. I think that when you take on bigger projects like that, if you don't have the buy-in from everybody, it's kind of not going to be as successful. So I would like that connection to be very strong. And if there's any funding opportunity that I can access, for example, for the renovation project that I'm unaware of, if that can be brought to my attention as well too, I would love to explore if the town would be willing to work on the matching side of that CFEP grant, for example, right? If there's anything I'm unaware of, if I could be advised of that as well too, and just kept in the loop of any opportunities that Ballard could explore.
Well, if we hear it would help your project along moving forward, we definitely would. We find ways to find every type of grant accessibility that we can. So
I am very much like that too, Mayor McPhee. I like to find the money and put it to good use and be accountable for it for the funders. So I'm on board with that.
I'll just give you a little bit of advice right now, Lana, regarding your community garden project there and those lots. A lot of people would be embarrassed to put their garden in because right across that steel pole is Lions Golden Villa and Parkview Manor. And they have their garden there. And those ladies put about 5 hours a day into their garden. So it's very nice gardening right there. So.
Well, that's good. And maybe there's not a need to have an additional one. I haven't really spent a bunch of time driving around to see what's out there, but maybe they want more room.
Oh, those Babas, yeah, they would put in an acre of potatoes each if I give it a chance.
Yeah, so it's just something to explore, and I know that the tax office said that I don't get out of my taxes on those lots until I have a plan. So
exactly.
I need to have a plan.
Brodziak, I know that the Rotary hasn't been able to meet there at the Valid facilities, and it's been a big setback to the club, right?
Rotary's been doing Zoom meetings, and of course that's really challenging. We don't always have great connections, and we're missing the boardroom, definitely. So hopefully
we're missing you guys too, for sure.
Especially the meals that are provided by the Valid organization.
Well, I gotta warn you, I am not the master chef that Jody was. I'm telling you right now, I have no problem with hiring a master chef to keep doing that for y'all, but it can't be me. I bake cookies. I'm good at that. So you know, you might get a cookie out of me once in a while, but yeah, I look forward to having the Rotary Club back and using our boardroom and doing the whole catering. We definitely want to see all of that stuff up and running post COVID, obviously. So hold down the fort in the meantime, right? But
Yeah, well,
thanks.
I've never turned down an invitation to a Rotary meeting in my life because the food is usually fairly good. So you have a bit of a ceiling to get to there for sure.
Those are the biggest shoes I think I have to fill, is the fact that I'm not that girl. So I'll do my best. Do my best.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up? Is there anything that we're missing that you would like to bring forward to us right now, Lana?
No, I think I've pretty much got everything covered off on the list that I had. So thank you so much for giving me the time and allowing me to tell you some of our plans. And I'm excited about getting to know
Look
you
forward
guys.
to meeting you in person from 6 feet away, and you're probably wearing a mask, but I'm sure that as this pandemic goes away, that we'll all get into a working group and we'll all get in our sync here. So.
Yeah, well, I look forward to those line dance lessons, Mayor McPhee. So I'm going to hold you to that.
Excellent. I'll bring my partner and hold it. Council Lemka has something he wants to put in here.
So right now, Your Worship, we've been using Dougie Hopper as our line dancer.
Okay.
Yes. So you'll be in tough competition there. Lana.
Is there somebody else in town that does line dancing? Because I want to know them.
I'm
That's my
not.
goal. I've been looking for the group, the people, whoever's doing it out there, because to me it's good activity and I have a lot of fun with it when I do it, and I miss it. I do it twice, 2 or 3 times a week with another group that before I moved here. So, and pre-COVID.
We used to have a country bar in town at one time, and there used to be a lot of line dancing happening. And I hung up my boots when that place closed down. So.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll see if we can't kick something into action here some way, somehow.
You bet. We look forward to it. And yeah, a couple of lessons, Councillor Barry and myself, we want to be there first, at least a day's notice for us.
You bet. Sounds
Okay.
great.
Very nice meeting you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Bye.
Phil, who we got next for our next delegation?
Were you asking me, sir?
Yeah.
I believe we have the consultants from Bear Consulting Firm. They were a company that was contracted by the County of Minburn to do a fire services study. So we have Isaac Commandant and Jeff Carlisle. I think they are in the queue, Sandra, if that is correct.
They're both loading up right now, and Jeff will be sharing a PowerPoint on the screen as well.
Excellent. Hello, Jeff. Can you hear me? You are muted. Oh, Isaac's not.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, and
okay, I'm just trying to get this queued up here. How are you guys, Your Worship, how are you today?
Well, I'm very good. Hello, this is what we are having a different bit of a concept today. This is only our second time we've ever Zoomed from home. So,
yeah, I've done this a number of times and I still haven't got it right.
yeah, it's not natural. That's the thing that I find weird about it.
Okay, Isaac, can you confirm that you've got the presentation visible?
It's a bit of a concept today. This is only our second time we've ever Zoomed from home.
not yet, Jeff.
Yeah, I've done this a number of times and I still haven't got it right.
Yeah,
Oh, there's a time lag.
that's the thing that I find weird about it.
Okay, Isaac, did you confirm that you've got the presentation visible?
I do not have it visible.
Okay. Oh, there's a timeline. How about now? Do you have the presentation now?
I see it.
And you don't have the speaking notes showing by any chance, do you?
I don't see anything, just reasonable fire services feasibility study, regional, yeah,
Okay.
the logos.
Okay. How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we got that technology working. And you don't have the speaking notes showing by any chance, do you?
No.
I don't see anything, just reasonable fire services feasibility study, regional, yeah.
Okay.
That was a while ago.
Okay, we're
Yeah.
still trying to figure out with Sandra how to mute the YouTube.
Okay. Well,
So,
we got that technology working.
so stand by, please.
No. I don't see anything, just reasonable fire services feasibility study, regional, yeah. That was a while ago. Okay, we're still trying to figure out with Sandra how to mute the YouTube. So stand by, please.
Okay, how's that, everybody?
Well, I haven't heard the echo yet, so maybe we're good to go.
All right. How is everybody this afternoon? Can everybody hear me okay? Good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, before we get started, do you guys have a hard stop for this meeting?
How long is your presentation?
Well, the presentation will take about 40 minutes, and then we're going to be taking questions after the presentation, so about an hour.
Okay,
Are you guys okay with that?
we are now.
Excellent. Well, Your Worship and councillors, thank you very much for allowing us to present today. My name is Isaac Commandante. I'm actually calling from Calgary, and I have my partner, Jeff Carlisle from Kelowna. For myself, I was the project manager and the content input for the project. And we had a number of other people on our project as well. There's about 6 people on our team, but you'll only see Jeff and I on the presentation today. So Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, Your Worship and councillors. I'm Jeff Carlisle. I've been consulting with Bear Integrated Solutions for approximately 12 years. My background is the fire services. I've been around about 46 years, although I don't look at it like it, I should say. I started when I was 9. No, I'm kidding. But enough for me trying to be funny. My first half of my career was with the Air Force Fire Service, and then I spent 10 years in Fort McMurray as Regional Fire Chief. Then I had 3 years in Vernon, and I finished my career as the Kelowna Fire Chief, full-time service in 2017. And I've continued my consulting with with Bear. We've done a number of projects similar to this one, and this was a fairly interesting one, and it was a good report or project for us to embark on, and I look forward to providing you with the details this afternoon.
Maybe if we could turn it over to your team, Your Worship, and do a roundtable introduction.
Certainly. I'm pretty sure that Jeff may have already met in the conversation that we had her, I don't know, a few
Yep.
months ago.
Yep.
And an ex-fireman from Fort McMurray, Dan Reesick, wanted me to pass a hi to you, so I thought I'd do.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. But make sure you tell him I said hello back, and if you can, give him a big hug.
Well, I'll give him a hug for sure, even if he didn't ask me to, so it's good.
Yeah, when it's safe to do so.
You betcha.
Yeah.
So we'll just start. We'll go start with Councillor Rudick, and introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanine Rudick, and it's my third time on council. I'm happy to see you here today.
Councillor Brajak.
Good afternoon. My name is Marielle Brodziak, and this is my second term on council.
Councillor Warwa.
Hi, my name is Tina Warwa. This is my first term on council in Vegreville.
Okay, let's fight it out here. So we'll go with Councillor Lemko next.
Yes, Councillor Gerald Lemko. It's my first term. I had the luxury of being the fire chief in the town of Vegreville for 18 years. So I'm looking forward to this this study, as I've done a bit of work with the county. And I'm interested to see what you guys come up with.
Councillor Barry.
Councillor David Barry, second term. I used to be a fisheries biologist, so I know that forested area north of Fort McMurray quite well. Done a number of studies on the Athabasca River and Delta.
Okay, Cliff, you want to get your team going there?
Sure. Cliff Craig, town manager. I've been with the town 15 years and 4 years as CAO. I also participated in the study back in the interviews in the summer.
Paul, you around?
Yeah, I'm Paul Casey, Corporate Services Director. I've been with the town for 4 years.
Okay, and then we got a couple of firemen here. We'll start with you, Dale.
Hello, Dale Lefebvre, Infrastructure Planning and Development Director for the town. Also a volunteer firefighter for 32 years now, and had the privilege of spending a good long week in Fort McMurray when things were hot and heavy.
Philip.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Isaac. I'm Phil Rowe. We met in the spring. I am the Community Services Director. I've been with the town for 10 years and was also a previous fire chief. So looking forward to your report here today.
And our technical director, among many other things. Sandra, you introduce yourself, or you already have?
No, sorry, I had to leave them in the waiting room. I'm Sandra Ling. I'm the legislative coordinator with the town of Vegreville.
Thank you all. And so we've got some people on our council that know a little bit about the emergency services and fire services. And I'm pretty sure that Councilor Lemko, you were probably with the last time that the county and the town negotiated some of this stuff. So we're anxious and ready to see what you guys have for us today.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And again, appreciate the opportunity to do our presentation to you. David Lefebvre, your name sounds familiar. You don't have a brother in Leduc, do you?
It's Dale Lefebvre. And
oh, sorry, Dale.
It's all right. And I do have some relatives in the Leduc and Beaumont and Devon area, but it's the possibilities there.
Okay, so let's get started. Jeff, next slide, please. One more. Okay, so the purpose of this project when we started was to identify collaborative and streamlined and effective and efficient ways to possibly do a regionalized fire service. So what we did for the project was we reviewed the existing means of delivery for the fire services, and we reviewed all the active fire services in the area, consulted with participating community partners, evaluated existing efficiencies, and identified potential enhancements through a regional fire service structure. Consulted, oh, back up, Jeff. Consulted with the CAO and others within the senior leadership, as well as the fire chiefs, to understand administratively and operationally what is working and what is not working, and what types of challenges you've had in the past and what challenges you might have in the future as in regards to risk. And of course, we consulted with elected officials from each of the municipalities and their respective fire services so that we could identify, again, some of the opportunities, challenges, and alternatives that can be realized. Discuss the needs, opportunities, and concerns with a view to identify the requirements, and again, to realize some of those streamlined and effective services for the residents. Consider the population and activity within the municipalities. And as you know, from an emergency management perspective, populations and activities pose some level of risk. Next slide. So we're not just looking at the possibilities of doing collaboration, of regionalization. We're actually doing a review of your fire services. So what we've done is we reviewed all the staffing, station locations, vehicles, including the large apparatus, the maintenance, and other equipment administration, as well as training. So it's not just about the regionalization, it's also about how your fire services are running right now. And of course, everything led to observations and we're going to be providing recommendations, financial implications, and possibly plans and timelines. Okay, Jeff? So as far as the report is concerned, the report is going to provide community risk overview, a fire services overview, governance and feasibility analysis, and key considerations for governance depending on which governance model you choose. So the following risk factors were identified during our research: multiple transportation corridors, medical response scenarios, stationary dangerous goods, as well as moving dangerous goods, and hazmat, wildland urban interface, structural fires, and vulnerable occupants, as well as the limitations of paid on call or volunteer staffing model.
Any questions, Your Worship?
I personally don't have any. Does anybody else have anything right now? No, doesn't look like that. Go ahead.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one more pause after I finish this first part of the presentation, just before we get into the recommendations. So the standards and references. So we took a look at a number of issues or things that would affect the actual report and the research itself. So we looked at the Alberta Building Code and Fire Codes, Alberta Safety Codes Act, Emergency Health and Services Act, Emergency Management Act, Government Emergency Management Regulations, Occupational Health and Safety, the MGA, Government Act, and especially the Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework, NFPA, or National Fire Protection Association, and the National Building and Fire Codes. So we get into the consultative process. Some of you participated in the workshop, and the goal of the workshop was to present an overview of the project and its activities. And I think I'm going to let Jeff talk to you about what he found out during the workshop.
Yeah, so we conducted a workshop with the steering committee primarily. I think the town of Vegreville representative, your fire chief was certainly there, but the other managers were not available, I don't believe, at the time. Although we did, Phil Rowe, for example, I remember interviewing him, and your CAO after the workshop, which was similarly structured the same way. And what we found out was there is a high level of interoperability right now in the county with the town and village fire departments. There's a lot of things that you do already that lend themselves towards a regional network. And that would be your, excuse me, sorry, I should have had that on silent mode. A lot of the practices you have now, the fee-for-service agreements, there has been some purchasing, bulk purchasing, some joint training. Those are the things that you're doing that lend themselves. But in the workshop itself, it was very positive. It was good to see good relationships amongst the village, the town, and the county.
Okay. So we also did a number of targeted interviews, and again, some of you probably were involved in that. And when introducing the interviews, we talked about things like what are your thoughts on risk, what's working, what's not working, what do you think your future activities are within the community. So what it really did was it gave you guys, or give the interviewees, the opportunity to talk about what their personal experiences were with the fire services, not in general, or in a general sense, and not as far as how collaborative each one of the communities were working. And again, Jeff was saying that there is a great sense of collaboration going on in the community right now. And one of the things that we looked for is obviously, you know, the gaps in what's working and what's not working, and what could possibly work based on what we find as far as regionalization is concerned. Okay, Jeff. So community-specific considerations, we looked at growth, economy, demographics, community profiles, and as you know, even with your 4 communities, no 2 communities are exactly the same. So we have to look at each community independently. And when we looked at each community, we also looked at the data on historical responses. So we looked at your demographics, we looked at your historical responses and individual risks. And then we look at the department specific considerations. So primarily your departments are composite, but primarily POC and some volunteer. And we also looked at the demand zones. And then of course we looked at the fee-for-service agreements and how that could be weaved into a possible regionalization scenario.
So we took a look, and as you're aware, at the time of the study, the town of Vegreville had 34 volunteers with a part-time chief and a full-time administrative assistant. Manville had 17 paid-on-call firefighters, including a paid-on-call chief. Innisfree had 14 firefighters, including a POC chief. The county of Inverna employs 1 full-time fire chief who's responsible for the fire services within the county areas and is designated as a safety code officer for all 4 of the municipalities. And when Isaac mentioned demand zones, the next slide I'm going to show you is NFPA 1720. And the first thing I'd like to indicate is there's no regulation or statute that makes it obligatory for a municipality to adopt these types of standards. We use them as a guideline. For example, in the Alberta Building Code, you have fire department response and limiting distance. If you're going to build a new community, you would have to demonstrate that your fire department is within a 10-minute response, or you would have to do other things that include residential sprinkling, larger lot size, protecting exposed building faces, these types of things. So in the county, there is a number of demand zones, which include suburban, rural, and remote. And that leads me to this slide, which is the NFPA 1720, which is a standard to guide volunteer paid on call or composite fire departments, and it includes their special operations and medical response. So if you look at the first the suburban area, which is a population of 500 to 1,000 people per mile squared, the minimum response, this is a suburban, so this would be in the town of Vegreville. You would require 10 firefighters to respond within 10 minutes in 80% of all the emergencies. So this is what we looked at when we used as a standard to evaluate the fire department and the types of data that we looked to mine from your dispatch service and from your fire department. You will also look at rural area, which is the areas immediately outside your built-up suburban areas, which includes a population of less than 500 people per mile squared. And that would include six firefighters responding within 14 minutes in 80% of the occurrences. And the 80 percentile, and that is meant to, because 100% of the time you can't do it because of weather, because of response conditions, availability of your paid on call. That's why that measure is there. The remote area is any area that's a travel distance of greater than 8 miles. And there's a large portion of the county that is then that for firefighters, and the travel time is strictly dependent on how long it takes you to get there. So that's the NFPA 1720. So what we did was, it was very challenging to do an assessment of each of the fire services, the town and the villages, based on the type of data that they were tracking. And we were specifically interested in the mobilization time. It's a time from when the call is received by the fire department to when they arrive on the scene. So there's mobilization time and travel time. In Alberta, the call processing and call handling time by your public safety access point or dispatch is included in that time increment. So this first map, what you're seeing here, is a theoretical representation. We know that on average, a volunteer or a paid on call service can take anywhere from 4 to 7 minutes to go from their place of work or their home or wherever they are predispositioned to get to the station. That would be your mobilization time. And we know that that's usually 4 to 7 minutes. And then the travel time is what we use in this theoretical analysis based on the 1720. In this map, what we're looking at is the rural response and 14 minutes. For the purpose of the theoretical response, we took an average of 5 minutes or 300 seconds. And of course, you'll see in the recommendations later in the report, we're looking for each fire department to track this data a little bit more accurately so that you can assess the performance. So for the purpose of this, it's just to say, okay, so based on a 5-minute mobilization and 400 or 540 minutes or seconds of travel time, here's what it looks like. And you can see Vegreville in blue is the response zone that you would be able to cover based on NFPA 1720 and this theoretical assessment. It just gives you a pictorial representation using GIS technology of what the performance could be based on 1720. Again, you're not compelled to do that. You may say as a mayor and council in Vegreville that this is too stringent a standard for us, but here's another standard that is achievable. It's achievable from a risk perspective, from an affordability perspective, and recognizing the limitations of a paid on call service. So this next map will be a very similar explanation, but this one is your suburban. This is the area in town where there's a higher population, if you remember the 1720 graph. Again, 300 seconds, 5 minutes to get to the fire station, whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're in bed or you're at your shop working in downtown Vegreville. 5 minutes or 300 seconds to get there, and a 300-second travel time. So the blue zone you see there would be what's achievable based on this theoretical assessment. I should have pointed out in the other map and this one too, we also did the same for Innisfree and Manville. Any questions, Your Worship?
No, not from me. Your maps explain themselves pretty good. If anybody else has anything right now. Seeing nothing, keep going.
So these next slides are about governance and feasibility, governance feasibility, and what kind of structure. So typical amongst regional services, there's three key constructs here. The first is a shared service center, and this includes sharing your financial, your IT systems, possibly your administrative systems, and some equipment maintenance where you centralize everything. So for example, if all the fire trucks in the county of Minburn came to Vegreville for maintenance, that would be an example of a shared service center. And these are theoretical, right out of the textbook almost, where it shows, on the left-hand side of the bar graph there, before the shared services, the cost per unit and volume, the amount of work, and then after how it goes down. It makes sense if you have one large mechanic shop and you're looking after all the vehicles, there's some efficiencies and effectiveness gained in this particular example. The next one is the center of excellence. The best way would be to describe this is if the county, for example, was to build a fire training center and trained all the firefighters that were in the city or the town and the villages in the county, that would be considered a center of excellence. So this includes, sharing leadership, skilled leadership, fire chiefs, director, ECCs, those types of things like this. So that would be a center of excellence as an example. Again, the theoretical depiction of how these you leverage expertise across the service that you provide. The last one is the operational shared service, and this is where you could share your fire stations or multi-use multi-purpose buildings. The one I think of is Strathcona County that has that rural fire station out near the oil refineries that they also accommodate the RCMP and a satellite county office and the fire department is an example of an operational shared service. And you can see here there are buildings and those types of things that you can, again, leverage some efficiencies from within a regional model. So when we did the analysis for the county of Minburn and the three fire departments, we identified that each one of these key constructs is applicable within, you could have an operational shared service, center of excellence. Each one of those constructs could have an application in the structure that we build or whatever options we provide for you. As I already indicated, the County of Minburn and partner municipalities already have developed an informal type of regionalization. Your fee-for-service agreements with the town and villages. And we also see that your fire chief or the county fire chief, Mike Funditis, he's done a really good job at building relationships and creating a good interoperability at the operational level. And during our interviews and consultations, the ones that I had with all the stakeholders, there was a very positive feedback on the work between the town, the villages, and the county in terms of the relationship and how the fire departments were operating. This slide shows the challenges that you typically have when implementing a regional or collaborative intermunicipal service. Lack of leadership at the administrative and political level, poor accountability, you don't establish the milestones as you move along. Representation, if you go into a regional model, a regional commission, then usually the representation is based on a weighted system. So whoever puts the most, typically, whoever puts the most amount into the resources, contributes the most resources, usually has a higher weight factor. For example, if you were to pursue a commission, you would appreciate that Vegreville would have a higher representation on a commission structure as opposed to Innisfree, being that you contribute more resources or you have a larger service compared to them. And that's a typical arrangement because one of the things we know is equal representation will not work. If you had 2 counselors from each village, 2 counselors from the county, 2 counselors from the town, that's not going to work. Equal representation, you're going to end up with all kinds of challenges. The other one is loss of control, and this was key in the interviews, and I'll touch on that later in the slide. But typically, when you have this situation, there's always a sense that you've lost some of your autonomy, lost your identity or control. And this is particularly the managers and the frontline firefighters. Extended time frames. Again, the textbooks say when you go down a road like this, it's 3 to 4 years, if everything goes right, where you'll start to see, realize some of the benefits and efficiencies of your endeavors to create this structure. So these are some of the key components that are typical in Alberta: informal agreements, automatic aid agreements, joint hiring like recruitment, intergovernmental service contracts. That's what you have now with your fee-for-service purchasing, bulk purchasing, departmental consolidation, like 2 municipalities join the department together. In fact, we're embarking on one right now where we're looking at integrating 2 fire departments into one. Planning boards, regional service commissions I spoke of, municipal controlled corporations is your Part 9 corporations. So I just have the list of agreements here, mutual agreements and those types of things like this that are right now the structure as you have it in the county and other municipal partners. So finding the right framework. Based on all this, what would work? What are the possibilities? And we could consider all kinds. I went through them. We could, the types of merging or joining departments together, regional commissions. So we looked at all this stuff. And one thing that was key for the stakeholders when we interviewed them was most of you said you need to have a greater understanding of what the regional structure would look like. And that makes sense. You're not going to agree to support something that you're not sure what it's going to look like. They also believe that the public, when I interviewed you, your worship, you believe that the public would support a regional fire department. But the key factors within that was no degradation of service or increase in costs, and the need to retain local autonomy and identity for your fire department. So for those reasons and all the data and everything we collected, the response stats, the types of emergencies you're going to, we developed these 4 options. So option A is basically status quo. Your fee-for-service agreements, your informal agreements, some of the bulk purchasing you're doing, some of the informal training, it stays status quo. Option B would be to have one intermunicipal agreement that establishes a regional fire department. In this case, and every one of these models, somebody has to be the hosting agency or managing partner. In this particular case, it would be through a negotiated process that either be the town of Vegreville would be the hosting agency or managing partner, or the county. That's essentially the structure for option B. Option C is the partial regionalization, which is where we would, the county would negotiate with Innisfree and Manville and develop a regional model where the county would be the oversight or the authority for those 2 fire departments. And then there'd be a second agreement with the town of Vegreville and all the aspects of the fire service in the agreement, similar to the agreement you have now. The final option would be establish a regional commission, which all the municipalities in the county would empower the regional commission to be the authority or the governance oversight. It would have to be provincially approved. That's the requirement of the MGA. And you'd have a commission. And again, you'd have that weighted representation that I spoke of to ensure that there was a balanced approach or equitable approach in the distribution of resources. So this table is just a very high level table of the 4 options in terms of structure, implementation, in terms of complexity, cost to adopt, the benefits, and the challenges. So option B, in our opinion, would be the most difficult one to negotiate. There'd be, I believe it'd be a very lively discussion, or maybe I'm presuming too much, that maybe Vegreville would be willing to provide the county the authority to manage the town fire service. And then of course the converse is, would the county want to establish the town as the managing authority? So that's probably the most complex one. The challenging one is the regional commission, and it has the highest cost to adopt. This is where we see the partial regionalization based on all the factors that we collected, that this one has probably the best chance for successful implementation. And it retains the autonomy, local autonomy, retains the identity of the departments, and you have really two services within the county of Minburn, the town of Vegreville, and then the county of Minburn, including Innisfree and Manville. Your worship, any questions at this point?
No, and I just want to let the rest of council know that a lot of people didn't know what this study was about, but this was brought forward by the county themselves, who's hired you to do this, right? Correct, Jeff?
That is correct. The county engaged us to do this study. So the first observation recommendation that we looked at was when we looked at the financial aspects of the agreement, and in our opinion, the current agreement with Vegreville and the county has utilized provincial rates for the deployment and responses. Now, we checked with the fire commissioner of the day, and we went back and we looked at what were those provincial rates established for. It is our understanding that when we talk about the Fort McMurray fire, big fire storm, I think it was 2016, maybe I have my dates wrong, but when the province knocks on your door in Vegreville and says, we want to deploy your fire trucks or what you can to Fort McMurray to help, that is the rate that they established to do that. When you look at the arrangement between the county and the town of Vegreville, they have their stand-ready fees. They also provide funding, either purchase of the vehicles or partially or partly fund the emergency fleet. And I believe there's some other costs they contribute to in terms of using the fire hall storage area, those types of things. So to us, in our opinion, that looks like, maybe there should be a different type of fee structure identified that doesn't include these provincial rates for deployments, because they are quite expensive. And again, the province did this because they don't contribute to purchasing your vehicles or equipment or staffing costs or anything else like that. So they're deploying them from that kind of a base rate where you already have a funding relationship with costs already included in the arrangement you have with the county. So what we're saying here is with the revisions of the agreement in 2021 to look at a different type of funding model between the county and yourselves. So we're aware that there is a good purchasing coordination between Manville and Innisfree. However, we're understanding that the town of Vegreville basically purchases its own equipment, and there is some economy of scales for certain types of common equipment. It's not that everything has to be purchased with the approval of the other parties, but we looked at the fire chief would establish a bulk purchasing arrangement with the town of Vegreville to take advantage of economies of scale. This would be things like bunker gear or turnout gear, breathing apparatus, other types of small equipment. You would gain some efficiencies in that regard. Recommendation number 3, is to look at recruitment drives. Each year, each one of these fire departments would go recruiting to find paid on-call members. You're fortunate that some of them have a fairly stable membership. But if you were to take and do a joint recruitment, do the posting, do the interview and hiring, we understand obviously that volunteers got to live close to their station, but we saw an opportunity here to maybe do things a little bit more efficiently and more effectively by looking at a joint recruitment. Recommendation number 4. There has been limited opportunities for each of the departments to train together, whether it's fire suppression or other emergencies such as motor vehicle incidents. I mean, a lot of times you would find 2 of these fire departments, they would meet at a scene, a motor vehicle incident on the highway where there's multiple vehicles involved, and they're working together, that level of interoperability. So, you know, one of the things we had in Fort McMurray with our mutual aid structure was we had the legal agreement that was the framework for indemnification, those types of things. But then next to that, we had an operations manual that's identified the core services, core training that is common to each department is a base. That doesn't preclude you from exceeding it. If you wanted to go out and do elevator training in Vegreville, for example, then you're free to do that. But there would be a base training and operations manual that identify that. And then you could take advantage of doing more training by bigger numbers, more efficiently by performing these courses or this training. For example, a training weekend in Minburn County once a year where you would take and say, okay, this year we're going to focus in on wildland urban interface. It's a 2-day training weekend, and all of the departments work together based on an established standard for that. Recommendation number 5 is the integration of the QMPs. All 4 communities right now have a QMP, and excuse me, and it's been updated or revised to varying degrees. I understand the county fire chief as a designated safety codes officer, and that there's a former member of the Manville Fire Department that backs him up when he's on leave. I know that the town of Vegreville, you have a group of approximately 5 A-level SEOs. Well, this is a service that could easily become the center of excellence, to use the key constructs, by developing an integrated QMP, looking at joining your resources. And again, you're going to have economy of effort here, a scale of economy, and a more efficient, effective program that where all these communities have a similar Fire Safety Codes Act, fire prevention, fire investigation, and public education. This is hand in glove with the operations manual I spoke of. I know right now that Vegreville, for example, has a very extensive set of operational guidelines. When you look at Innisfree and Manville, they have smaller inventories and possibly out of date. If you could develop with the county a standard set of operational guidelines or protocols where you interface, that would be service enhancement, where when Innisfree and Vegreville meet at a big scene, a giant barn fire, the protocols would be similar and have the commonality from a joint response perspective. Recommendation number 7. We're aware that the remainder of Minburn County uses East Central 911, whereas you are getting your emergency dispatch services from Strathcona County. I think, again, it's economy of scale and interoperability, operational efficiency, if you were all being delivered to service by one service provider. I recognize there's a history to this, but we're looking at this and saying, if you want to embark on a more regional structure, enhanced collaboration, I think one of the keys to this is a centralized dispatch service. How am I doing, Your Worship? Any questions?
Yeah, I'm wondering where you get to the point where it's a real something positive for Vegreville. It's all sort of leading towards the county here? Did they have any input in these recommendations?
Well, Your Worship, I think it's a matter of perspective. I see a lot of good things here for Vegreville. There's an opportunity for you to be the leader here in a regional service within the county of Minburn. It's subject to negotiation and the opportunity to be leaders and help these other smaller fire departments. Where am I at? Observation number 8. This is for all the fire services. We tried to extrapolate the data from the records. And we do get call volume. We know how many calls you're going, but we're interested in that mobilization time and travel time as benchmarks where we could take a look at this as a performance objective. I'm understanding that, for example, there are some small minor MVIs that occur where a car gets hit by a deer on the highway and you end up with 4 or 5 units on scene, which really doesn't require that. I understand that volunteers volunteer to respond, but there has to be a balance here. And if you had consistent and coordinated benchmarks and say, okay, you know, for this MVI, in Vegreville, we'll respond to an MVI on the highway with 6 firefighters within 10 minutes and 80% of the occurrences. And that would be perhaps your minimum standard response that you would look at. And those would be the benchmarks that would be measured to measure your fire department effectiveness. And let's say you couldn't make 6 minutes. Well, then you would look at it. You'd look at it from a risk perspective as a town, and you'd say, well, you know what, here's what is achievable. Here's what achievable from an expense perspective, what's affordable, what's the paid on call system is capable of doing, what our resources allows us to do. So based upon our consultations with the steering committee and the interviews that we did and a review of the relevant data that we had, the responses, the training, it is our opinion that option C is the best option to move forward. And of all the ones that we see towards regionalization or enhanced interop or collaboration, we see the partial regionalization as the option for the county of Minburn. For Vegreville, it means you're going to negotiate a new contract next year in any case, or new agreement. There will be some discussion, I'm sure, on the fee schedule, and that'll be part of the negotiation process. But part of this structure includes for the county to hire a deputy chief of operations and training, and then a financial assistant as well within their organization to look at the training standards, the operational guidelines, the development of a standard of cover, which I'll speak of, also to track the financial fee structure. So this is estimated to be at $165,000 per year increased cost to move to option C. So these benchmarks that I've been talking about, the operations training manual, the response standards, these things are all what's identified as a standard of cover. So in the standard of cover, you would list all the services you provide, and then you would talk about the standards or the performance criteria that you're capable of doing, again, balancing all the factors we talked about. So in this recommendation is you undertake a comprehensive risk analysis to all the response areas, demand zones of suburban, rural, and remote, and develop these standards and say, okay, from the county and town and village perspective, here's what services we can provide and to what level. Here's what we're going to train to. Here's going to be the minimum response criteria that we're going to use on each type of emergency, as a standard of cover. This is also part of a standard of cover, which is called a critical task analysis. I'm sure Councillor Lemko and Phil will understand that for each type of response you have, there's a minimum number of firefighters that are required. It's called the effective response force. And what you would look at is for MVI the minimum response is 6 people. One person is the officer to do the incident command, and the other 5 will be the people who actually extricate or do the mitigation of the emergency. This is the type of thing we're talking about. So you take every one of your types of core services and you identify what the minimum number of firefighters are required to safely perform that operation, and it's safety for the firefighters, but also for the public and the people receiving the service. It's critical task analysis as part of the standard of cover. We noted that a number of the agreements, including the one that the county and the town have, are somewhat dated. That yours is up for renewal next year, for example. But we recommend that anything that was, there's some that are over 10 years old, that it should embark upon updating their agreements that are over 5 years old. So, in conclusion and summary, we took a look at the operational administrative aspects of the fire departments within the county and the community profiles and risk factors. We also took a look at the relationships, and I got to say, you've got a really good situation going there with the relationship with the county, with the villages and the town. In our experience, is really good compared to other studies that we have done. The fire chief, Mike Funditis, by the consultations we had with the stakeholders, is doing a really good job at that operational level to maintain that interoperability. Key among the recommendations is the fee schedule for the county agreements, bulk purchasing procedures, centralized recruitment for POCs, joint training, and a centralized QMP, and common operational guidelines, and a centralized dispatch. And finally, again, we believe option C for the partial regionalization would be the preferred approach, although option B does have potential and subject to negotiation of who would want to be the hosting or managing agency. And on that note, I'm prepared to take any questions. I'm really conscious that there's a number of senior firefighters on your council, and including Phil as the manager. So I'm prepared for some fairly extensive questions if need be.
Okay, well, who would like to open up some questions regarding this study?
Well, I should say Dale is also a firefighter too. So we've got a technical group here.
Okay, so I'll start with a couple of questions. On the recommendations, I know that you guys did this on behalf of the county. Are you hearing me, Jeff?
Yes, I'm not. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so most of these recommendations that you come up with, we are already there. Like, we're building a training facility right now. I did like the dispatch idea, maybe a little more than what we're doing. So we don't have 4 or 5 extra units showing up on each site. That something that always, I don't understand, you know, why we need a fire truck if someone has a flat tire at times, but I do understand some of them. The reason the county brought you guys together for this sort of seems like we're going to be negotiating with them the fees anyway within a year. Do they want to get into the firefighting business? Like, because they've never really shown any interest in it before. They would like to, obviously you're recommending C, they're probably okay with that. Is that the feeling that you have too? Was there some consultation on the recommendations with the county?
Your Worship, we've discussed this with the county and industry. Manville, we haven't. They were part of the study. It was distributed to the stakeholders, which included the CAOs and fire chiefs, each one of those communities. And my understanding from the villages and the county's perspective that option C was the option that they would like to look at. understanding exactly what you said is that your agreement comes due next year, and that they will be looking at that agreement and the fee schedule within that and those provisions. I don't want to speak on behalf of the county. We were engaged to provide the study, and this is some of the analysis that we came up with.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Yeah, not being a firefighter, not really knowing a great deal about it, found the presentation to be quite interesting, except that from my perspective, Vegreville has the responsibility of providing fire services within its municipal boundaries, Innisfree within theirs, Manville within theirs, and the county has the responsibility for everything that's outside of those three little islands. Do they really want to set up their own fire department that covers all of that? Because right now what they do is they have agreements with the three municipalities to provide fire services to the county. So when you say that Vegreville has a really good relationship, I think it should be the county has a really good relationship, because at the moment they have a fire chief and the other three municipalities are providing the fire service. Now, they pay some of the bills, they have some of the equipment, but some of these scenarios you're referring to would make it sound like if we're having a Minburn, county of Minburn fire service, that they would have to come up with an awful lot more funding. Because I think the aspect is that the three municipalities are doing most of it right now. So I'm not really quite certain this where they're coming from as the county wanting to be the controlling partner of the three actual fire services. Maybe I'm wrong. I just need more discussion on this. Thank you.
Your Worship, I did not indicate that the county wanted to be the managing authority or hosting agency for all three fire services. What has transpired in the course of this report was the villages see an opportunity to have a more efficient structure if the county would become their governance structure, just the two villages. We understood, as well as the county people we work with, understood that Vegreville is the largest player in the county, has the most resources, and that's why you see the only partial regionalization. The county does not want to manage the fire authority. In fact, the conversations we had with them is they recognize that for them to build their own fire service in the county is going to create problems for everybody, because you're going to be competing for the same volunteers within the county. And then you have to find people who live close proximity to the fire station out in the county areas. So to you, the relationship that you guys have is a good one in that there is, in my view, mutual benefit to both sides in this type of structure. And I believe there's significant interest for the town of Vegreville and the county to work on maintaining that relationship. And you're absolutely right, Councillor Barry. The county areas are the responsibility of the county to provide those services, and they choose to do so through fee-for-service agreements. And I believe that that's the direction that they want to continue.
Go ahead, Councillor Rudy.
Thank you for the extensive report. I think at the danger of sounding critical, I think I need to back up to the very impetus that started this study, because for those of us that have been around council for a while and those of us that are not firefighters like myself, this seems like the inversion of what we currently have in place. So I guess my two questions would be, what was the original impetus for embarking on this study for the county? And the second question I had is just going back in some of the recommendations that you had, is talking about the status quo. It seems to me that, it's inverse, that in fact the town is the one that's providing the service and the staffing. So even just like the tally of the number of volunteers and the fire chief and the admin assistant, et cetera, that in comparison that the county currently has a fire chief and that trying to make up that balance in terms of the experience and the manpower and the energy and the time that is currently taken up by fire services for the county would be completely inverse to what it is currently. So I'm quite confused, actually. I feel like maybe I missed why the county embarked on this study. And if you could just again reiterate what the status quo currently is from your perspective.
Your Worship, I believe the impetus from this came from the intercollaborative framework by the revised MGA. That's where the province provided grants for municipalities to look at ways to collaborate, intermunicipal collaboration. I believe that's where the foundation is. I can't speak for the county. If we wanted to, really be precise, I can go back and we can go through the scope of the contract that was the requirements and where this was developed. And our understanding was that this request for proposal was developed with the stakeholders representation, because it was this steering committee of the CAOs and the fire chiefs that we dealt with. Now to the second part is, you're absolutely correct in that Vegreville provides the bulk of the services to those areas that assign to them. There's a guideline that establishes a response zone for the Vegreville Fire Department. The County of Minburn does not employ any firefighters. They have a fire chief, which is an administrative lead position. In the fee-for-service agreement, they've contracted the city, or correction, the town of Vegreville, to provide those services into the county. And this is an efficient way of doing this, allowing, rather than them building fire departments all through the county and trying to staff them, which would have implications for all the municipalities, they choose to contract these services to Innisfree, Manville, and to the town of Vegreville. I'm not sure, Councillor, if I answered your question, but I mean, that's how I understand the system works.
Thank you. And I guess, sorry, as a follow-up, Your Worship, as a council member on the ICP or even the intermunicipal collaboration framework that was put into place, I don't recall this as one of the key conversations that we had during those negotiations, but so I appreciate the clarification here, just so that I can have a better understanding.
Your Worship, I would just qualify that by saying is that would be my understanding, and I don't know other than that. So it would be worth a conversation with the county as to what was the driver for this.
Okay, Councillor Rudick was a part of the ICF committee, and that was never brought up for sure. Cliff, you have a question?
Just a comment on that is there was an agreement already in place when we were working on the collaboration framework agreements. So we didn't have to go into the fire services one at that point.
Okay. And I do understand, Jeff, believe me, that the smaller municipalities and villages are probably reaching out for a little bit more help from the county for their essential services that they provide for emergency services, and the county's trying to find a way. I appreciate the fact that our municipality here, Vegreville, we do as much as we possibly can to support Innisfree and Manville at times, and we'll not stop our support. It's just a little bit of a pre-negotiation on behalf of the county, the way I see it. We did not see this coming, that they were looking at changing it up and actually hiring another person, but not actually providing a service. Again, we're open to discussion with anybody about any service that we provide. We provide a lot of different services to municipalities, and we've been at it for a long time, and we know what we're doing. Some of the recommendations I would see that would benefit for sure the smaller fire departments, and I don't blame them at all for supporting any recommendation, anything that they can do to help out their residents. So I know we're going to be having a negotiating period here pretty soon regarding our fee for services. As far as I'm concerned, we're a leader in this area. Like, I know what other municipalities are our size, what they provide in fire and emergency services, and I know where we're at. We're way above most municipalities our size, but we do that as being a leader in this area. So, I mean, I do appreciate what you guys brought to us today, and it did point out a few things to us. And I don't know what else to say other than the fact that we'll have to have some input at the negotiations on the cost for the fee services, where our input in this study will be important, I guess. Does anybody else have anything they'd want to bring up right now? Go ahead, Councillor Warwa.
Thank you. I was just kind of taking this in because I've had kind of experience in two ways. One being on a council in a village that started off with their own fire department and then went through the process of actually becoming part of a regional services. And I know that in that scenario, one of the things that started the reason for the county wanting to is a little bit of standardization, because we know that fees and what can get charged in as the county portion can be quite high, and it's very difficult sometimes in small villages, particularly, sometimes to rein in the costs that happen there. But I also have some experience having somebody that lived in my house that was actually the county fire chief in a different scenario in a different county where that went out. So my question was this, in situation of say scenario B, or even in a hybrid of C, would you typically, or would you say that the standard is more so when a county is a governing body, whether it was for all of us or whether it was just for the villages, would you say that in most scenarios you saw them still maintaining somewhat of a fire department in each of the, say, small villages, or would you say it was more common to see them build an actual center in a centralized location and dispatch out from there? That would be my question.
Well, there's no consistency. It depends. There's so much uniquenesses in every municipality. So if I look at my time in Fort McMurray, we maintained all those rural volunteer departments as part of the regional fire service, and they all maintained their autonomy. We did come up with an identity. They all had the regional municipality wood buffalo shoulder flashes from a symbol perspective, but you have Fort Chipewyan and Fort Mackay. So there was that. And there's other places where we've seen where the integration leads to where there isn't so many fire stations because they're co-located so closely. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's all based on the uniquenesses of each community and the context of where they are with the county and those types of things. That's the best I can do, Councillor, in terms of answering the question. There's no standard approach to this.
I will add, we're just finalizing a report right now for Clearwater County. And Clearwater County actually has a regionalized service, but each one of those communities within Clearwater County has actually retained their autonomy and retained the name of their fire service within their own town, but they're acting in a regionalized manner for efficiencies and effectiveness. So for instance, in Clearwater County, you've got Rocky Mountain House, Caroline, Condor, Jeff, fill in some more blanks here for me.
Nordig. Yeah.
So it does work, and Mountain View County is the same thing. Mountain View County is another one that we've worked on, and again they've retained their autonomy as a fire service within their own smaller communities, but work together as a regionalized service.
Isaac, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Under option the C, where would you see the cost savings for the town of Vegreville being in there? This was what would be benefit to us in actual cost?
Well, you have to look at all the aspects of how you run your department and how the others run their department as well, because in option C, you're looking at benefits such as improved resource coverage, for instance, which means that you're going to look at your how you guys run your resources within the different communities. So for instance, if you've got a situation on the highway where Vegreville gets called first because they're closer to the situation or the incident, but they can't muster enough people there, then the next call would be obviously to the nearest other fire hall. So, you know, in that situation, you're looking at some benefit. There's also the common defined scope of services, which means that if you guys are better at doing, say, confined space compared to the next community, then you are going to be the first call for that. So it all depends on how you run your departments, and you look at your standard of cover. Your standard of cover could include confined space, high angle rescue, water rescue, for instance, or hazmat, where perhaps industry doesn't have those services. So that's how you run your department, how you run your responses. And of course, you're doing it right now as far as shared activities, as far as buying bulk in you know, bunker gear, or even collaborating on fire trucks, on what to buy and who to buy from.
So what I've seen so far in the study is that we're being asked to negotiate the fee down for on call, for actually the time on the scene. So there'd be no cost savings there. We would be going backwards. But what I do see is the bulk buying, where right now, when we do buy equipment, especially personal stuff for each fire department, and we have extra left over of our old stuff, we generally pass it on to these other fire departments anyway at no cost. So I just don't understand. What I don't see is beneficially, what would benefit us other than the fact that we would lose the ability to charge money to the county for on-call service and for time on scene. So it beneficially would not help us at all in reducing the cost of our operations and moving forward with purchases of more equipment. That's what I see so far. I mean, someplace in here, maybe there is something, you know, maybe they would like to use our new training facility that we're building, and maybe they would want to pay for that service or something like that. I just don't see how it would save us any money.
Your worship, that's a good example. Is the Center of Excellence could be your training area in Vegreville, but also you would see some efficiencies, cost efficiencies in terms of doing more joint training or base training together with the firefighters. There'd be cost savings there, rather than you funding a confined space entry course just for your firefighters. You would gain some economies with inviting Innisfree and Manville into that, because the more you have, obviously, or it should be, the cheaper, the more effective it will be, that type of things like that. And the report indicates that the provincial rates that were used in your agreement may not be appropriate, and that a new schedule needs to be looked at. I mean, I'm sure the county's emphasis would be to reduce these costs, but again, that's a negotiation process. We're just saying that using those provincial rates, given the other contributions that the county has, may not be the most equitable arrangement based on those provincial rates. So I just wanted to be sure I clarify the context of the agreement that you have now.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Jeff. So I see nobody else waving their hand right now. Oh, Councilor Barry, you have something?
All I was going to do is that listening to all this hasn't changed anything, that Vegreville is only responsible for fire service within the municipal boundaries. And as soon as a truck leaves that boundary, it's under an agreement, either to go onto the highway for an accident or to go to the county to fight a fire. So I'm confused as to how negotiating lower prices to provide that service is beneficial to the town. It doesn't make sense to me. We are in the process, or I shall say, our fire department, because they're the key, are in process of putting up a fire training center that definitely other communities would have access to use for a fee. So I'm not seeing where spreading ourselves so that we're receiving less funds for providing the service makes any sense to us. I'm not following it.
Okay, well, for right now, and I'm gonna have to cut this off here because we need to get to the next portion of our agenda. I want to thank you both, Jeff and Isaac, for the work you put into this. And, you know, we all care a lot about this whole region. And, you know, and anytime we have a chance to help out anybody in the county and anybody in the, I don't care if it's Mundare, if it's Manville, we will definitely do what we can. So we look forward to bringing this up with the county and the other stakeholders and moving forward with some of your suggestions and negotiating a new agreement with them. So thank you both. Does anybody else have anything that was there anything else that you guys wanted to put in there? Sorry about that, Jeff. I cut you guys off.
Yeah, Your Worship and Council and Cliff and Phil, Sandra, thanks for this opportunity. It was a good presentation, good discussion. And Your Worship, when you see Dan Reesick, tell him that I always got the bigger fish.
Okay. I'll let him know.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you,
Isaac. Okay. Is everybody good to keep going? Excellent. Next up, Phil, you got nothing, right? Okay, so Dale, it's all yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. What will be coming up is the new bylaw that's coming up for establishing a development authority. The only thing that's changing on this bylaw from the previous bylaw is that the previous bylaw was a 1995 bylaw. This one makes the correct references to the Municipal Government Act and has just been updated. We were just noticed last time we made reference to them at a council meeting that they were in need of being updated and refreshed. That's all that this is. Nothing else is changing in the bylaw.
Okay, so again, this bylaw will be at Monday's meeting.
You bet it will be, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Keep going, Dale.
All right, the next bylaw is the subdivision authority bylaw, where the town council provides authority to its employees, certain employees, to be the development authority. So right now that is Karina Sorkin and myself as appointed by council, and then due fact of the MGA, then the town manager is also that position as well. And this is also a very old bylaw. Last time it was refreshed was in, I believe, 95 as well, the 10th month. And we're just bringing it up so that it's fresh and it is making proper reference to the MGA that we have now.
So the only changes are the references to the MGA. There is no changes that we all need to be aware of that, you know, it has to be done on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock or something like that.
No, that's correct. It is not. All we're doing is we read through it. We made sure that the bylaw still works and works for what we are doing today, as opposed to what we may have been doing in 1995. It still works. It's a plain Jane bylaw. So it's just to get it updated.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was your last one. Okay, Mr. Paul Casey, you're up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first thing on the agenda for mine is transfer to the Land Development Reserve. So when we purchased when we purchased the property from Terravest, it was determined at that time that any money or net proceeds we received on the sale of the property would go back into the Land Development Reserve where it came from. So that's the first part. The second part of that one is we sold that property to the Clarks for $13,000. And so to be consistent, I just thought we would transfer that into the Land Development Reserve as well. So we will have a request for council decision coming to council on Monday to transfer $144,000 into the Land Development Reserve for the sale of those two properties.
Okay. See that on Monday as well.
The next one on my agenda is a transfer to the carry forward operating reserve. So during the budget process, a number of areas that were had unexpended funds were reviewed and decided to be carried forward into 2021 to be used in 2021. That's a total of $291,522 that we'll be carrying forward from 2020 into 2021 to offset any tax increase that would have had to been raised to pay for those in 2021. And that request for council decision will coming on Monday as well.
Paul, just to keep everybody up here. So some of the stuff that wasn't spent last year going back into that reserve, but will the projects move forward? It'll be funded from that reserve.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. And you have one left.
Yeah, the last one is the draft borrowing bylaw for Southeast 17. We have to get a borrowing bylaw in place before we actually start doing any work on that project. So we put together a borrowing bylaw for $2.5 million. I know that our portion of that project is $1.65 million. The other balance of it is to recover the $600,000 that we have to transfer out of reserve to cover the pre-engineering costs that aren't covered by the grant and any potential overruns that there may be. There's nothing that says that we're going to borrow $2.5 million, but we're just trying to give ourselves some room in case we need to borrow more than $1.6 million. So.
Okay, so I'll ask the question. So the money that we spent on the engineering, we're saying 100% that we're not going to be able to get it through this grant?
I will ask Cliff to respond to that because I'm not certain.
Okay, go ahead, Cliff.
We will do our best to try and recover it through grant funds, but in the case that it's deemed ineligible, this borrowing bylaw would cover the amount in the borrowing bylaw would cover and replenish our reserves.
Okay, so we'll have this discussion on Monday, but moving forward, there's this money that we're borrowing at this 2.5 million. We really, hopefully, are not going to be using this money. When we get the tender back or there's some unforeseen something that jumps up and bites us, but typically this should only be where we have it budgeted is what we're really shooting hard to get is a 1.67 of $1 million to get this project on a debenture. That's what we actually would love to be at. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul.
You're welcome.
Cliff, you're up next.
Okay, the first item I have on the agenda is Sandra and I have been working on a election signage bylaw, and we had brought this forward initially a couple of legislative meetings ago to see if council was willing to go forward with this. One of the main reasons is the change in the Local Authorities Election Act, where nominations can be accepted effective January 1st. So what we're putting in the bylaw is that signage would be effective after the election is called, because nomination day, it could be by acclamation, and where an election wouldn't actually be required. This also stipulates locations and types of signs that are permitted and not permitted. So, okay.
Okay.
And that would go, we would request all 3 readings on Monday night. Okay. I did develop a penalty fee schedule for it as well. Like if a sign is put up prior to an election being called, if it's put on private property without owner's consent, etc. I just put a standard fee or a penalty, sorry, of $100. In the research that we did, that seemed to be a fairly common number that was used.
Okay, so everybody will go look through that, and if you have any more questions, we want to go all 3 readings on. Oh, Councillor Barry, you have a question now?
Thank you, Your Worship. I support the bylaw basically as it is. It's just one clause, 3.3 in particular, E. It reads, election signs must not, E, not resemble a ballot with a mark in favor of the candidate's name with the intent to explain to the voters how to vote. So I've got about 5 different questions here. The first one I note here is I think we have a double negative here because it says election signs must not, E, not resemble. So we've got a not. So I would suggest that the not resemble be adjusted just to be resemble, so that the double negative isn't there. The other part though is I'm finding it a little confusing to look at the intent to explain to the voters how to vote. To me, the whole aspect of campaigning is to encourage voters to vote for a particular candidate. So therefore, everything about a campaign has the intent to explain to voters how to vote. So I'm not certain about the language here. I believe the candidate's intent is always to give, it's never to give an actual instruction as to how to mark the ballot. So I'm not certain what the intent is. So what the questions that I have here is every election, an awful lot of the signs, if not the majority, and the brochures and the advertisements include the candidate's name, usually with an X beside it or a check mark beside it to encourage people to vote in that manner. So my question is, what is the reason for this practice to be banned? Who has the power to interpret the candidate's actual intent or motive? Is the restriction only for signs, but no other campaign materials? And as it is written, it says the sign must not resemble a ballot with a mark. Or is it no portion of the sign should resemble a ballot with a mark? And the final thing I have is, as it is written, is it the mark that is actually the violation when you read the English of the wording? So can we have a discussion on this, starting with why is it suddenly inappropriate to have a sign that looks like a ballot or contains a portion of it that looks like a ballot?
Go ahead, Sandra. You want to answer that?
Hi, sorry. Because a lot of this is new because of the changes that have come out in the last review of the Local Authorities Election Act, LAEA. And along with the regulations and that, there are a few things that they have changed even from when before the 27 election they changed. Then they changed them again in 2019, and then they changed them, 2018 and again in 2019. This is in some of the information and pamphlets that we've been getting out regarding the elections. I was kind of flipping through here to find where it's referenced, but I will have to find that and give that to you. It is actually written in here, so I will find it and send the reference out to all of council after the meeting.
So it is written somewhere in an act that it's illegal to have a sign that looks in that fashion? Or is
It's pretty much the way it's written is the way they have it written in the act, is that it's not supposed to resemble a ballot, and it's not supposed to have a mark in reference of exactly what people are supposed to do when they get to the polling station.
Then I think that we need to actually take a look at the wording on there as well then, because the way that it's worded, it says not resemble a ballot with a mark in favor of the candidate's name with the intent to explain to the voters how to vote. I think that we really need then, if this is actually written in law somewheres, then all this is explaining what the law is somewheres else. So in our ballot, in our bylaw, we need to be very careful how we word our bylaw so as it doesn't oppose what is actually written in an act. Because this here, to me, when I look at the English, is saying resemble a ballot with a mark, which means that the mark is the concerning factor, not that resembling a ballot. And the aspect is the intent to explain to a voter how to vote. I'm not trying to explain on a sign how to mark an X or how to put a check mark. So I think the wording of it in English, we have to make sure that we're consistent with the actual act in the wording. It strikes me that if this is to be banned, that we might be wanting to look at simply, you cannot have a sign that resembles a ballot or any portion of a sign resembles a ballot. Because most of the signs are a big picture of a person, some credits as to what their abilities are, and right at the bottom is a little bark that says a circle with an X in it and Barry, David.
Yeah,
That's the only part of the sign that is resembling a ballot.
Yeah, and
So
I can.
If
Sorry.
Sandra, if you can pull that
Go ahead.
part of the Elections Act and get it out to us as soon as you can.
Yes,
and
I can.
And if there's going to be any changes before Monday, let us know.
Will do.
And
yeah,
then
I appreciate the fact that if there is something there, it's just that I want to make sure that we're not opening it up a little bit, because you see, the way I read this, I could very well argue that if I don't put the X in that little circle, everything's fine. It looks like a ballot, but it's not marked. So that's where I'm going, is the English on it, okay? This as to what we're really trying to achieve. Thank you.
And to answer one of your other questions, this is strictly for election signage. It is not regulating anything in your brochures or in the candidates' brochures. This is just the signage.
Yeah, is there an intent to place a restriction on the brochures?
Not at all.
And advertising? Because I'm just going from experience running two different campaigns, that I did have this on my signs. I had it in my advertisements and I had it on my brochure.
okay, well, we'll take another look at this new part of the Elections Act. We'll all get a look at it. Sandra will send it out to us. We'll make some comments, and if there's going to be changes to the way that's structured in the sentence in here, we'll have that by Monday.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. If we need to restructure it, I just want the English to be so that it's consistent. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the bylaw?
Councilor Project, did you want to say something?
I was just going to reference that we don't need to rewrite what's already been written in the new act. We can just reference to it instead of writing it our interpretation.
Okay, well, let's take a look at it first and see what it says, and then we'll determine from there. Okay, is any other questions on that bylaw at all? Okay, go ahead, Cliff, move on.
Okay, the next item is the fees and charges bylaw for 2021. So this would have to be approved after the budgets are approved. So we've incorporated the new user fees that were discussed at the budget meetings and incorporated into mainly the operating budget. Okay, there is one typo, and it's on Schedule M. And it's on the labor and equipment vehicle rental rates. The third line down, it says laborer without vehicle is $43.20 an hour, and it should read $49.20 an hour. Okay, so these rates incorporate what was discussed at our budget meetings and is also included in the draft 2021 budget.
Okay, so I've gone through them and I see exactly what will be in the budget. And if anybody else has anything that they want to bring up or that we should take notice of before Monday's meeting, please send it into Cliff or Sandra and we'll go from there. Okay.
My last item is the deputy returning officer, an RCD. As mentioned with the changes in the Local Authorities Election Act, we can receive nominations effective January the 1st and going forward. So we do not need to have a returning officer in order to do this. The nominations can be left at the town office. By virtue of my position, I can accept the nominations, and I would just like to have a deputy returning officer as well until we reach the election time. And at this point, it would be to receive nomination papers at the town office prior to the nomination date.
Okay, so we will see that on Mount. Councilor Riddick, go ahead.
I'm just curious, for my own information, can you just clarify what is different, what was previously in place, and what is different now with the Local Elections Authorities Act? Is it because of the change in timeline or the change in authority? Which is the big difference in change?
It's mainly the timeline. In the past, the nomination day was 4 weeks before the election, and the nomination time was set from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. So there was a 2-hour window where nominations had to be filed. And now nominations can be filed anytime from January 1st. Well, I'll say 4th because we're not open on the 1st. From the 1st of January going forward up into and including nomination day in September 18th, I believe it is. The other thing is that nominations can be withdrawn in that time period. So someone files their nomination papers in January, they could withdraw them, say, in May, if they chose.
Go ahead, Councilor Riddick.
So because of that quite significant change in the timeline, the amount of responsibility could be significant or it could be non-existent. Is it possible for you just to keep track of what kind of implications this is to your office administration? Because there are a number of elements to the Local Elections Authorities Act, which I think are quite controversial and really provide a lot of headache to municipalities across the province. And I just would be curious to know how this particular element is going to impact our administrative staff. So no need to answer necessarily right now, but just I'd be curious to see how much the increase in work might be in 2021 as we're entering the election year.
Okay, the majority of the work will be on the returning officer. What we're looking at here is that there's a designated person, an alternate, to receive nominations prior to nomination date. So, yeah, but we'll definitely keep track of what happened, and I can't answer it now. We won't know because it's a new process starting next year.
Okay, Councilor Barry.
Just from my own self, just a little more clarity. Prior, like in 2017, before you could start to campaign or set up anything, you had to apply to indicate that you were intending to maybe sign nomination papers. So now you actually have to do the nomination papers before you start. Is that what it? I saw Sandra nodding her head. So they've actually taken away where you just applied and say, I'm thinking about campaigning and doing the nominations. And then the nominations, I thought they were only signed the day of nomination day prior to noon. So it's actually now you have to, before you even start anything of campaigning or setting a bank account, you actually have to sign nomination papers. Is that?
Go ahead, Sandra.
Unless Cliff wants to answer this? No? The biggest change and the change to the nominations, it's a little tricky. It all has to do with campaign financing and campaign spending. It's not such a big issue in our community because we don't have the large well, you guys are not running the large campaigns where it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars like the big cities do. And that's part of the reason for the change, and that's why they got rid of the intent to intend to file nomination papers. They were very limited on when they could spend the campaign money, when they could collect it, all this stuff. So by allowing nominations to come forward as of early as January 1, they can start collecting, spending, all that stuff for their campaigns prior to the 4 weeks of the election. Originally, back in 2018, they changed the Election Act to be 6 weeks. And there was quite a large pushback from the larger centers saying that 6 weeks is not enough time for them to run a substantial campaign. And so now the new changes have come back that they can start with nominations on January 1.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, I guess I'm up next. That was all you had, right, Cliff? Great, thank you. So, Mayor Craig Copeland of Cold Lake has written a letter to Tyler Shandro, the health minister. They have a couple of concerns, and I'm not going to read the whole letter because it doesn't really affect us as much with the interprovincial stuff that Cold Lake is seeing. But the content of his letter that he wrote to the health minister is regarding the two different apps. The Government of Canada tracing app, COVID-19, and the Alberta Trace Together app. So in his situation, Saskatchewan has adopted the Government Act, and a lot of people on just close to them are using it, and not a lot of people in Alberta have signed up for the Alberta Trace Together app. They're asking that the government of Alberta go to the Government of Canada app, the COVID tracing app. I personally asked at a telephone town hall, the premier a couple of weeks ago, why our app is not working. And he basically said is because nobody is signing up for it. So I don't know why people are not. And I don't think that we should be out on an island as a province here neither. I know that he told me the part of his answer was that they adopted this app because Singapore had used it and it was very effective there, but they have a different form of government there where they don't ask citizens to download an app, everybody downloads it. So in view of that and the lack of response that we're seeing in this province with people trying to sign up for the Alberta Tracing app, I think that we should form a letter and asking the government of Alberta to go along with the 8 other provinces and territories and have a singular app that we use in the country, and request the Minister of Health to go ahead and bring that app into this province. Is there any questions on that? Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
I could agree to that. What I can see is Mayor Copeland is his real problem in that area. Even if all of the people in his community had the app and all of the ones in Saskatchewan had the government app, they don't interrelate when they come to the two communities come together. And in that location, there's a lot of movement across the provincial border. So definitely when the Saskatchewan people come there, they don't interact with the Alberta app. So I can certainly see, and I would expect that Lloydminster has the similar problem with the Saskatchewan border. So it does seem to me that it would be appropriate to just have one app across the country.
I know Dr. Dina Hinshaw was asked the question about 2 weeks ago at a press conference, and she was urging Albertans to download the app. She said that the amount of people was so disappointing that had the app that it's less than 30 tracing connections they've made on this app in the province, just due to the lack of interest by Albertans. So I do feel that writing a letter asking the provincial government to at least go along with the 8 other provinces and territories that are using the federal app, that we at least would all be on the same page, and hopefully encouraging more Albertans to download this app. So I'll go ahead, Councillor Warwa.
I don't have an issue with the letter. I just did want to say that, remember, I had raised problems with the provincial app and had said that I had removed it because of some of the issues I was having. Now, when I did remove it and re-download it, I haven't had the same problems anymore. So it does appear that they have fixed the problem. Doesn't help with people actually still signing up to it, obviously. Again, don't really have an issue with us writing the letter. The only thing that I will say, and this is my personal opinion, I think that if we're having trouble getting people to download the provincial app, I feel the people of our area will even be less responsive to downloading the federal app. So I mean, I know personally, I'd have to think twice before I'd ever download the federal app.
Well, and my hope would be that it would start dialogue back and forth, and people that absolutely hate the government of Canada in this province may do it just in spite, download the, at least we'll get some dialogue. Let's stir the pot a bit. Let's try to get people talking about using this app, because either one of them would be better than having none. So is anybody against writing a letter? I mean, I use my time on a telephone town hall to ask the Premier personally what we could do to engage Albertans into signing up for this app. Is there any tools legally that he has? And he's flat out said he has nothing other than asking Albertans is all he can do. So the more we talk about this, maybe the more conversation might lead to, who knows, a few more people signing up for the app. It's free. It doesn't use any, go against any of your privacy issues. Facebook is more concerning than this app, either one of them. Councilor Rudick?
I would say that having two poorly subscribed apps is not ideal. And if we can try to coalesce with the rest of the country, that only makes sense. I think the situation in Cold Lake is unique, but as Albertans, I think we're poorly served by having two apps, and the least we can do is try to encourage people to at least coordinate efforts across the country. I think that's effort well spent for us to write that letter.
Anybody against writing the letter? Or does everybody want us just to try to encourage the government of Alberta to have more people use the Trace Alberta app or Alberta Trace? I mean, I've asked people on the radio in this community to sign up for the app, and I've explained to people that the first downloads were using up batteries, but they've got past that problem. But still, it's a very, I don't, for something that's free, it could be a life-changing moment for somebody in your family. It just seems weird that we don't do it. Councilor Rudick.
And the other thing too is that we don't need to be territorial about things that we've done well in Alberta. For example, the tracing app hasn't been well subscribed, but by comparison, the checklist and the online booking that Alberta implemented very early on in the very beginning stages of the pandemic have been copied by other jurisdictions as far away as New York City and other provinces. So there are things that Alberta Health has done very well in response to COVID response. This app hasn't had the success for whatever reason. And I think we just need to move on and try to find a better way to be able to meet the needs of citizens, because that's ultimately the point. It's not for Big Brother watching us. It's to try to effectively and efficiently get people aware of what contacts they may have come into contact with and be able to remedy that. But this isn't territorial anymore. This is about people's best interests.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll form a letter stating that we would like to see them go to one app, and please try to encourage every Albertan that has a phone to sign up for this, because it just doesn't make sense not to. Okay, anybody else got anything else? So we're going to move to round table discussions, and we're going to hear a little bit about what every councillor is hearing out here in the community. And we're going to start alphabetically today. So Councillor Barry, you go first.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to say other than that I've smiled under my mask when people have said thank you for putting in the mandatory bylaw for masking. Having said that, I still kind of wish residents would recognize that wearing the mask doesn't mean all the other things go away. I would still prefer that people social distance even though they're wearing a mask. And the hand sanitizing is extremely important, and wearing a proper mask. So I think that now is the time that people have to really recognize that being very careful is the important thing. Nothing is going to make things safer just by wearing a mask. Do all the other things, please.
Thank you very much. Councilor Brajak.
I haven't heard many negative comments in our community lately, but what I do want to ask to all the members of our communities to please have respect for one another. There's a lot of negativity on Facebook and on all the social media sites. And I've posted that I wish it was 40 below out so that people would stay home and that people would not have the anti-mask rallies. So as much as I love this weather, I do wish it was 40 below right now, because I think we would be a lot safer. And that is, yeah, I haven't heard any, I have nothing else to report.
Thank you very much. Councilor Lemko.
Yes, Your Worship. I don't have any comments about what I've heard from the community and all that. But what I do have is I'd like to just extend a sincere thank you to the staff, doctors, nurses at our hospital, and all the frontline workers there, the maintenance and the janitorial, and these people. And I've been there visiting my mom. Unfortunately, I can't go now, but twice a day. And I see the amount of pressure on these people. I think we just need to thank them in a bigger way than we are. And as a community to remember these people are, I wouldn't say so much frontline, but they're almost at the last line of defense in a lot of cases. So kudos to them. Kudos to our doctors and the nurses and all the staff there. You know, it means a lot.
Thank you, Councilor Lemko. Councilor Rudy.
Well, I think you're going to be sensing a theme here. Along those lines, I think it's important that we continue to remember that COVID is a virus that doesn't punish or choose the people that contract the virus. It's simply something that is contagious. And for that reason, there are a lot of things that we were just lucky up until this point. But in order for us to continue into 2021 with the vibrant and caring community that we are, we're going to need to make sure that we're very diligent to protect one another. So in that vein, there are a number of local businesses that have really stepped up their efforts again to make sure that people can safely distance and provide quality service to their citizens. So I want to specifically thank our businesses and our business owners that have really found unique ways to continue being able to meet those needs. And I would encourage those that have not yet signed up for the Shop Here initiative that they should do so, because it's for all kinds of businesses that if we want to be able to shop locally and be able to do it online, there are some unique opportunities there moving forward. So again, thank you to everybody that's providing frontline service in our businesses as well as our service provision. And thank you to our town staff as well for being able to continue to work through some really challenging times, because I think we're going to be having some difficult news in the next little while, and we continue to be strong as a community. So thank you for our staff and for those on the front lines.
Thank you. Councilor Warwa.
Obviously, same sort of theme coming again. Had a number of people reach out to me on a number of issues. When I say that, it's just overall general, not because everyone's waiting to see what restrictions are coming and what's province is coming. So I think that's one of the holds. I have a couple of things about masks that I just want to say because we are on here. Please, people, stop dropping your masks. I have been in public so much in the last 2 weeks where I've spotted masks on the ground. Please stop doing that. Like, we just need to think about it. And then I watched an older gentleman pick up a mask because he didn't like that it was on the ground. Think about what you just did there. I watched a senior picking up a mask. I mean, I can't stress that enough. I also want to reiterate what Councillor Brodziak said. It is literally no secret that I have not been a mask supporter, never hid that, but stop going to rallies for anti-masking. I'm well aware that we have people from our community, and everyone knows who you are, as I'm looking right into my camera right now. And I know you've been at some of them. Please stop doing that. I'd like to see stuff up and running again. We want things for our kids. The town is trying very hard with their staff to still provide outdoor activities. Anyone who's tuned in has watched us try to get ponds ready, try to get outdoor spaces ready, talk about spaces for people to be going for cross-country skiing, all those types of things. So please stop doing that. And the one last thing about, and still with some of the regulations, I brought it up before, our mask bylaw, but still now, as we've seen, sometimes we shouldn't watch Facebook because it is infuriating. However, like, the negativity is a big thing that needs to stop. Everybody, I understand if you see mass gatherings or people having parties, certainly you can feel some responsibility to, to report, but please try to also think when you see one vehicle in, you do not understand the situation. You do not know if somebody has a service provider coming in, if somebody's having some work that has to be done within their house. You don't know what vehicle somebody might have, or if they have a loaner vehicle. So I'm very disappointed to see where neighbor upon neighbor is taking opportunities at times to maybe be counterproductive. Let's all try to be kind to each other, because we're going to have a next couple of really tough weeks. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you all. What I would have to say is I've talked to Covenant Health and Alberta Health, and I've been asked our community to wear your mask properly. There's a lot of people that are noticing that noses aren't being covered, and somebody that wears glasses, myself, I know how frustrating it can be to have that mask up over your nose and fog up your glasses. So do what I do, take off your glasses, but not while you're driving. I want to bring that right up. You can leave your glasses on. I too want to talk about the doctors and the staff, and not just the nurses, but the cleaning staff and everybody at St. Joseph's over the weekend. They went full tilt down there, and they isolated that virus to the one floor, and they cleaned and they polished that place. And we don't give enough credit because we're not there every day seeing what they're going through. So if we had anybody in this community has a chance, you see a frontline worker, thank them, because it could be you there next. I noticed a lot of good positive things in the community. The first week I got a lot of negative comments, but this last week, everybody has been a lot more positive with the messaging that they've been phoning me or texting me or emailing me. And I feel that we're in this together, and we just all got to be a little more positive moving forward. And I know that Christmas doesn't look good. And Councillor Warwa brings it up about people going just jumping on somebody that has a visitor at their house. You know, a lot of people having a lot of emotional challenges and stuff right now, and some people need support, and somebody may just show up at your door that you need to, knowing that somebody needs support. So without knowing the situation, I know that there are other things, parties and stuff that have happened. And believe me, if you have proof of that, report it. Don't hesitate. I don't want to dwell on that. I feel that as a community, we've done a good job up to now, and having that monster right beside us called Edmonton and the situation they're in, I think that if we all do our best, that we can get back to very, very single digit numbers by Christmas in our community. And that's something that's positive and a short-term goal that we should be aiming for. So next up, we're going to do the director highlights, and we'll start with Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple items council had asked about an update on outdoor rinks last week. So we have 3 currently in place: the ODR, Man-Made Lake, and the Elks Kinsman Park. Of course, due to the weather, the facilities crew have been doing their best with their early morning and evening floods. They are closed right now. You would have seen the social media releases due to the thickness of the ice. It's going to be getting cooler this weekend, so we expect that they'll be opened shortly after they get some more ice built up. I did want to bring up to council for consideration about adding 2 additional skating surfaces in the community. One at the southeast at Alex Horvat Park, and another one at the northwest park by Councillor Lemko's place. They already have the wood in place, and it would just be some additional flooding. The reason for this is to, again, with school being out right away, the amount of pressure this is going to put on the ODR for skating, it's going to make it very difficult for us to control the outdoor gathering. So I'd like council consideration to make 2 extra skating surfaces.
Councilor Rudy.
I don't know if you need an answer right away, but as we spoke around this issue, the previous meeting, I think it would be a great idea. I know in speaking with some of my colleagues that are in larger centers, they're having a very tough time, especially with junior high and high school students being out and organized sports activities being shut down. The pressure on these outdoor surfaces, like outdoor rinks, are immense, and it's turning into neighborhoods pitting themselves against each other. So if we have the opportunity to provide that outside venue for our youth and our community members to be able to utilize at low cost, I think we absolutely should do it. I think it's a great idea to provide more opportunity.
Seeing nobody against it, okay, Councilor Brajak.
I also had a request to have an outdoor rink just south of the mall on that property that the town owns. I'm not sure how to describe it.
Is it beside Kevin William's house?
I don't know where Kevin William lives. I think so, yeah. Behind David Salden. Anyway, and the residents there said that they would look after it. They would not expect the town to look after it at all. They just would like to have a rink there in place. And since it is town property, they wanted to have permissions if the town could flood it, and then they would look after it.
Okay, well, seeing where our staff are not really having a lot of challenges right now because all of our facilities are closed, Bill, do what you can. And if you can, the third one, let Councilor Brajak know and she'll get back to the community there, because there was a request to her.
Okay, will do. And my last item is council brought up about a walking trail request at the golf course. I have done a temporary plan, and I will be meeting with a couple of golf course, the executive member and the manager later this week to discuss, and we think it's a very viable option. So.
Okay, and I do appreciate that. And I don't know what the cross-country skiers, or they make their own, Paul? I don't know how that works. They just need 2 tracks. How does it work?
Yeah, there's a group of cross-country skiers that go out there and they just make their own track. And then there's a group of snowshoers that go out there and make their own track, and they try not to interfere with the cross-country skiers. So, yeah.
Okay.
There's about 10 people that go out there cross-country skiing on a regular basis, so.
Yeah, we're going to try and make it all work amongst all 3 groups.
Excellent, because it's more of a scenic landscape out there for them. And again, where we're at right now with this pandemic, any chance that we can offer, you know, for low cost, a little bit of entertainment and a little bit of mental vacation, I'll say, it's good for everybody. Okay, is that your report, Phil?
Yeah, that's all I had, sir.
No, thank you very much. Dale, you're up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. An update, what was in the 2021 budget, I was asked about the columbarium niches and the repainting of. There is an amount of money in that budget, and we do have some local talent that has experience in this, and they're going to go to the first original columbarium, and they're going to go and repaint as soon as the budget's approved. They're going to go repaint all the letters that are faded and gone, as there's obviously no warranty from the original seller.
And how are we going to relay that message to the families of the people in the columbarium?
Well, as best we can. I mean, if we can, it's a small enough community, we should be able to get a hold of everybody because we know a lot of people or someone does, but that'll be the plan.
Okay.
Okay, and just another clarification, when the election signage bylaw goes for its readings, when that's completed, then shortly after that, you will see the land use bylaw be coming up, because what we'll have to do is there is a small portion in the land use bylaw regarding signage, election signage. So we're gonna have to remove that because the election signage bylaw is much bigger. It covers it in more detail. There will be a couple small things to clean up in the land use bylaw. It's minor, it's just some housekeeping, mostly grammatical errors that we found as we go through it. So I'm not going to pull together land use committee to come to meet together by Zoom to remove the election signage portion, which is now just being basically taken and put into its own bylaw plus more information. So you'll be seeing that bylaw be coming up for amendment. All right.
Yeah.
And that's all I have, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Paul Casey.
I don't have a whole lot. I'm working now that budget is getting ready to go to council for approval. I'm getting ready for audit. Auditors are going to be doing interim audit on the 17th remotely. So we are just gathering information for them and sending it over to them to do whatever they have to do. I'll give you an update on where we are with taxes. So to the end of November, or actually to today, we're at 80% of our taxes collected. We still have not been paid by Her Majesty the Queen and right of the province of Alberta. If they had paid us, we'd be at 90%, which is exactly where we were last year at this time. So we're not doing that bad. On a positive note, one of the 4 properties, or one of the 5 properties that we took over through tax recovery process came in and paid all their back taxes today. So we'll be reenacting that title to that person. So now we only have 4 properties to worry about. So
excellent.
And yeah, that's about all I have, Your Worship.
Have you talked to anybody in the province at all, Paul, regarding when we might see the taxes or what would be the holdup? Or
I have not, Your Worship. I've been looking for a contact because it used to be somebody by the name of, I think it was Sarah Gray, but she's no longer on the list. And so I'm trying to find out who to contact, and I haven't been able to find that information yet. So
maybe we should get a hold of their MLA. Which ministry would that fall under?
Municipal Affairs.
Okay. And the new minister has probably moved some new people in there, but maybe our MLA may be able to steer you in the right direction.
Okay, I'll try and give her a call and talk to her.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Cliff Craig, you're up.
Thank you. A few items here today. The communication coordinator position. I have contracted a communication specialist regarding temporary communications coverage for the town. Her main responsibilities will be working on postings and updates to the website. Sandra is assisting with the postings to social media. The Economic Development Manager position was vacated on November 30th, 2020. I did sort through the office on the weekend. And then with that, the main item that time sensitive coming from that are the C1 initiatives. And I'm just in the process of reviewing the applications, and I will get those to the Economic Development Board executive, I'm hoping by the end of the week. The plan is to have the incentives paid in 2020. Christmas greeting radio spots. So I've arranged with Country 106.5 for council to have 15-second Christmas greeting message. The messages will be aired on a rotating basis by the radio station personnel. Each message will air 7 times. So record and send your message directly to Country 106.
Okay, so 15 seconds. Everybody get something nice and cheerful together, and we'll get it out there.
Okay, the last item was the additional COVID measures. As you're aware, we implemented some additional measures yesterday. Some employees will be working from home. The main doors to the town office are locked with contact information posted on the doors and the website. Access to the town office is by appointment, or people can phone from the front door and we will go down and bring them in. Payments can be made. They can be placed in the lockbox at the main doors. They can be made online or through their financial institution. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Cliff.
Okay.
So everybody sees the upcoming dates here. I've had a conversation with Cliff regarding the staffing around Christmas. So the staff will be half a day on the 24th. Is that correct, Cliff?
That's correct.
And then Monday will be in lieu of Boxing Day. So there'll be I don't know, it's like a 5-day or 4.5 day break there all for them. So it'll be good. Everybody can recharge at home. And okay, so I want to thank everybody for what they do again. And you know, it seems like things are a little helter-skelter right now, but I'm sure that I feel confident that we've got a good handle on everything that's going on in our community. So moving forward, we just gotta bring a little bit more respect and a little bit more hope to everybody, and you know, try to cheer somebody up once in a while. I know that there's some people that are getting fairly anxious being stuck in their homes and stuff. So everybody try to phone a friend, try to reach out and touch somebody once in a while. Not physically, sorry about that, but just help somebody out who you think might be struggling right now. So that being said, that's our meeting for today. We do have one item in a closed session. So I'll be looking for a motion to go into closed session. Councilor Warwick, thank you very much. Thank you all for watching.